we move now to, where's my agenda? I lost my agenda. Okay, we move now to a very interesting, we totally switch topic, and we move into the UI realm with one of the, there's a few UX UI designers in the Ethereum community. One, of course, is Lily, the one who helped us with our graphics, but he's no second in popularity, I guess. He's from Belgium, and I had the pleasure to work with him on some personal projects, and I loved his approach to UI and to simplification a lot. So I really wanted him to join us and to share some tricks for all people interested in perfectioning their UX UI for their digital products. So it's Ben Adriaenssen, also known as Bennisan.
All right. Thanks, Matteo. And
by the way, Ben, I think that you can make picture-in-picture. If you go to the cam, there's an arrow, and you should be able to do picture-in-picture. Is it the case? No.
No, not really. It just says the FaceTime HD camera with me, so it doesn't matter. I mean, I can just show the presentation. You don't have to see my face all the time, I guess. Thanks anyway. Hey, and thanks for having me, ETHTurin. It's very nice to be able to share some knowledge here. Also, big shout out to the guys of ETH Berlin for supporting this event. Very nice how you guys are doing that. So welcome to my talk on branding and UI for digital products. As I just said, I prepared a little presentation, so I'll share that with you guys now. All right. So can you all see my screen? Yeah, Matteo, is it visible? Yeah.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. All right. So to start off a little bit about me, I'm a graphic designer in background. Received my master's in 2008, and after that, I worked various jobs in the industry. Did some advertising, did some publishing, but nothing that could really scratch my social itch, as I would put it. I've always had the interest of using my talent and my skills and my energy, of course, towards making a social impact and to adding value to society almost. So that's why I became a civil servant. So this is me working in the city of Antwerp as an... hey, Kai, nice to see you, man. Hey, how you doing? So this is me as a civil servant working in the city of Antwerp, first as an art director and later as an interface designer. But the search for making a real social impact, of course, stayed. And that led me and the small team I was working with at the time to starting Swarm City in 2016. To be fair, this is not the whole team. This is just a part. I just thought it was a nice pick because we all wear so much swag in it.
That's Chris.
That's always nice.
Is that Chris?
That is Chris, indeed. Yeah. He was working for us at the time. I think he even, I don't know if that's true. You have to ask him, but I think he really joined the blockchain space through Swarm City as well.
Okay, so cool.
I think one of my colleagues was really active in recruiting, and yeah, he really drew in a lot of people. So so that's him. So Swarm City was a really nice project and really much fun there. But in 2019, we really had the shitty thing of our funds running out, as a lot of blockchain or startups in general will encounter, of course. And then we didn't manage into making the project self-sustainable. So that's why I decided, like, after a small hiatus, to become self-employed designer in the blockchain space, focusing on branding and using interfacing. So why would I focus on branding and using interfacing? Well, not only am I like a sucker for a smooth UI and some great branding, some solid branding, it really gets my heart going, and I really love that stuff. Of course, because it's my profession also, but Not only that, I also believe it is essential for a digital product to reach mass adoption, that it has a solid UI and it has a clear, good defined branding to do communication to the outside world. And what, by the way, for me, of course, to scratch my social itch and to add value to society, than to make all these great blockchain products that emerge from the world have an easy interface, are easy to use, and are visually and aesthetically pleasing. That's really the goal for me. So let's see, how do I do that? Let's first focus on user interfacing. So we have to realize that whatever we design, like whatever it is, also including user interface, it's always about communication. So I think everybody knows this scheme, this model. It's a classic communication model, but it really applies to everything we design. Let's say we design a poster for an event. Let's say that we decide to put a date on there, very clear. This already communicates to the user that it's an event. And if we decide to put the names of the groups like in that kind of form next to each other, we communicate that it might be a music event. So whatever the form we choose, which is basically designing, should always be, in my opinion, in function of the message that we should try to deliver. Of course, if that's the case, then we as builders or we as communicators should always very much try to put ourselves in the perspective of the receiver, because it's all too easy to take the position of the sender. But I think taking the perspective of the receiver is essential in making a good design. When we're talking interface, of course, we have the added complexity that it's not one message that you send. It's, of course, several. It goes back and forth, and it's even dependent on the input of the user. So the added complexity of a user interface, you could call it more a conversation than a linear communication thing. Let me just put this down real quick. Where were we? Okay, over here. So yeah, so it's a conversation, and to put it in the words of fellow UI designer Vinayak Gupta, he says design to communicate and not just to decorate. I guess that kind of sums up everything that I try to say here. Let me make you this comparison. Let's say your app that you're building or your product that you're building is a hotel. It has several functions. It maybe has a pool, has a restaurant, maybe there's breakfast. People can come in, make reservations, try to get access to their rooms. All this kind of functionality has a hotel. And if you would compare it with an app, then your user interface would be your hotel clerk. And of course, I think we all want our user interface to be as smooth and give the user such a nice experience as Monsieur Gustave here. Of course, because we are not all Siri and we cannot all depend on the user just asking question whatever he wants. We have to be proactive about it, and we have to analyze and summarize our functionalities. As app builders, I think this is really key before we start building an interface, that we ask ourselves questions like, what are the main functionalities of my app? What's expected by the user? And this can go both ways. Either does he expect to be able to access certain functions all the way through, or only at certain moments, or maybe even in functionalities like, does he expect password recovery, or does he expect to be able to change his avatar, or that kind of stuff. Not that you blindly have to follow what the user expects, but I think it's important to take it into account if you're doing this analysis. Also, very important to me is which functionalities can we group, because there's only so much paths you can send a user on, and it's really important to try to group them and to make it really clear in an overview. If we do all this, then we have our building blocks to build an interface. Let me show you a quick example. To of course be perfectly candid, this is not created by me, although I think it's a very good example. Maybe some of you know it. It's the Oasis app by MakerDAO, I think it is. They did a fantastic job in making a pretty complex application, very to the point for the user, by grouping all their functionalities and just basically presenting you 3 paths as a user to start your journey. And I think they do a great job. So if we have these building blocks, of course, it's impossible. It's the idea to start building a visual hierarchy. So at every page, we want a very clear visual hierarchy. Basically, it's a fancy word to say the places and the sizes and the elements you put on the page and in what order you put them. It's not always easy to do this in a correct way, but there's a very simple trick to it. If you scrunch your eyes like like Senior Chang is doing here, or if you just take a few steps back and still look at your design, look at your phone, look at the device the interface will be visible on, then you will have a clear view of what pops at you first, what speaks at you first, what guides your view. And that's basically the idea you want to do with the visual hierarchy. You want it to guide a user's view. So that he gets to where he's going, because that's, of course, the end goal, I guess, right? Because we have a lot of elements we want to put on a page, there's luckily some conventions, some things users are used to, which we can do to minimize the elements we have to put on the page. For instance, if we put one of these guys on there, we know that this is user stuff, this is account stuff, this is what people are used to when they're looking for their, as I said, their account stuff. We don't have to put an extra like these little guys there or the word account or whatever. If we just put this there, people will look for their username, maybe some password stuff by looking for this thing. Also, of course, there's UI elements that we all know and love, which can save us some real estate, as they call it. For a collapse expand, of course, is a most famous thing. We have icon buttons that we don't have to put full words in there, just an icon to communicate, all that kind of stuff we can use to minimize the elements we put on the page to create a clear visual hierarchy. Very important while we're building an interface is to never ever forget the two things that I'm about to mention next. The first thing is TTT, as I like to call it, or trust the tab. I think it is essential that we trust that people will tab stuff. As builders, we're often so scared that our message will not be received that we put all kinds of craziness around some certain buttons or whatever, or we want to put all kinds of stuff next to each other because we're scared that people will not just tap stuff. And I guess if we all ever saw a toddler play with an iPad, we know that people will just tap stuff. This comes out of every A/B testing as well. People just tap stuff. And the good thing about an iOS device is that in this case, the toddler will also reach his end goal, as we all know. So trust the tab, it's essential. Another essential thing, it's kind of in the same line, it's no overloads. It's, again, out of a fear of not getting our message across. A lot of builders put all things next to each other and difficult explanations and a lot of words and they sum it all up just to be sure that the message will get across. But I think while building an interface, it's essential to never forget that none of your users have time nor the patience to read every word and every little element you put on there. They just do a quick glance and then they need to be in the direction they want to go. And average attention span could be 8 seconds. It's based on some Googling just real quick. So it's not very scientific, but I could only imagine that this is about true. So to me, that boils down to say what is needed when it's needed. That's really essential to me. When the user needs certain stuff, it needs to be available. And if he doesn't ask for it, if he doesn't need it, leave it out of the page. Let's see how I implemented this in the user interface of Swarm City. As you see, it's very basic, but it has all the functionalities it needs. We chose to really group our user actions. Like on the left on top, you get all the account actions. Next to it, you get all the balance actions. Whatever you want to do with your tokens, you're gonna tap that kind of stuff. Of course, we got a button to leave on the right hand side, and below we take up the complete real estate to have the user interact with the hashtags and marketplaces, which is the main function of Swarm City. So we really divided it into a couple of categories, and that's all we show on the page. Of course, to do that, we do trust the tab very strongly. we trust the user to just tap its avatar when he needs to change his avatar picture, which is really effective. I mean, it's been we've seen it in A/B testing, and we've seen people doing it a lot. So same goes for balance. It's something like that a lot of my fellow builders, fellow front-enders had a lot of trouble with, of just putting it there and just leaving it like that. But people do tap it. So the things with their coins have been done. So that's the best proof that people do tap the balance when they need balance stuff. And of course, if they need an interaction with one of the hashtags, one of the marketplaces, they tap the hashtag. To avoid overloads, if they do tap an interaction as this one, they tap settler. We take up the complete real estate again to focus on the action that's being done here. At this point, the action is, or we do an interaction with one of the items which are like listed and take up a lot of space and can breathe a lot, or we create one ourselves, which is on the right, the plus button. This idea of taking up the entire real estate of the device, we took it even a step further in this mobile view. Once you get to interacting with an item and you're going to fund this, it's really important that we have your complete attention, and we don't want anything else in the way. There's nothing else you need at that point than to know that you are funding this deal. So we take up the complete user interface, and we even at this point work with like a color code. If one of these actions happen, if one of these very specific user journeys starts, we take it over and make it completely blue. And if your action is successful, we'll make it completely green. If it's unsuccessful, we'll make it completely red. So this is like let's call it idiot proof, or that's at least what we were aiming for. So that's how I applied these branding, these UI ideas to an actual interface. Of course, another passion and another aspect of my profession is branding. And well, about branding, I'm not a big guy for definitions and that kind of stuff, but it's maybe interesting to take a look at the origin of the word. And the origin of the word is, of course, the brand mark that was being left, that was being burnt on livestock, which identifies to which company or person this cow belongs. So in the common day use, we use branding basically as what identifies your company in terms of expression, I guess, would be my take on it. There's of course very much different aspects to it, but there's two things that I would like to talk about, which really are my strong suit, let's say, and that's logo design and colors and typography, which are of course the very basics of branding. So if we talk logo design, I would like to take a few quotes of Sagi Haviv here. Sagi Haviv has a great course on Domestika, which is one of these learning platforms where you can hear him talk about logo design. He's a famous logo designer. He's New York based, and he has created the logos for tons of big American television networks, Showtime and whatnot, PBS and that kind of stuff. Also National Geographic. So he really knows his stuff, and he's been in the business for a long time. And I think he has a very clear view, and he expresses some stuff in the Domestika course which really are really striking to me and are really resonate or express how I feel about logo designs. So I would like to share those with you. And the first one of his quotes is, I think, the most important one. It is that the logo is not a sentence, it's the period at the end. For Aviv, what he tries to say with this is that a logo should not try to carry all of the weight of the brand. This is something that a lot of people do when they try to create logos. Like, it has to say that we're doing this, it has to say that we're doing this, it has to say that we're also that kind of company and that kind of company. Well, Aviv thinks that like other ways of communication should always also be taken into account, like the products that you have or the other expressions that you do. And also like the client or the receiver of the message has his own associations with the brand also. So what a logo should do be the conclusion to the whole ecosystem of meanings and communications and whatnot. And it should really be like a climax that really makes a point and that really like transmits the brand values or an emotional feeling almost. And I totally agree with him. If you look at it like let's look at a famous example. Wait, my mouse is gone. Oh, there it is. A famous example, of course, is Nike. I think the swoosh is very known, but Nike is a sports brand, and there's no sports here. There's no guy playing tennis, or there's no little tennis shoe, or there's no little I don't know, footballs or that kind of stuff. They didn't bother like to try to put all that like very literally in the logo, because that would mean that you're trying to put all of the message into the logo type. No, this logo expresses a sort of a dynamic stuff, sort of an active kind of thing, a very no nonsense approach as well. And that kind of ties together everything, I guess, that Nike stands for, without being too literal and too heavy loaded with communication. Similar example, of course, is the famous Apple logo. We all know this logo, and we all know what it stands for, and that's what it means, like with all the expressions that the brand does and the associations that the client itself makes. They have to be taken into account. And then this logo basically just is the point on the end of that sentence, which just says, well, we're very stylish, we're very minimalistic, and we're a little bit like maybe different. I guess if we think different, the slogan they had in the 80s, I guess the Apple kind of sums up that brand value as well. Another important thing I think he says is logos survive because they can adapt to countless formats. Especially for us digital designers, this is like an essential one, because if we create a logo type, we have to always take into account that it will be used in very small spaces, and it should like ideally fit into a rectangle or a circle. Why that is? Well, there's a few examples, of course. This could be one. The app icon. Both on an iOS or an Android device, we always have these small icons which should like be instantly recognizable. Like, oh, there's the app that I'm looking for. So it should fit in this space nicely. This is, of course, another great example of why it should be able to be used very small as well. In all the avatar scenarios we have, it should be able to be used like that. And if we take it a step further, of course, the what's it called? The fav icon. Ideally, especially if we're building a web app, it would be very nice to put the logo type there, and still have it express the similar values. Oh, that was I'm kind of ahead in my presentation here. Okay, sorry for that. Where was I? Yeah, the fav icon. So. Oh yeah, of course, and this one as well. That's with all the skipping and stuff. So when you make it very compact, it fits nice on a sticker, which is always nice. I mean, stickers are always a nice way of doing some guerrilla marketing and to post it here on the streets of Rome. I remember when there were people on the streets of Rome. Well, that will come back. Anyway. He also says, at the study, we always try to ignore the trend, which is also like a key one for me. I think when you create a logo type, it's essential that you try to aim at timelessness. You don't want it to be like, have a timestamp pretty quick, because you don't know how quick things will evolve, and they do evolve. So it's pretty cool for me, or it's really the idea to aim at a timeless logo. In my at art school, they even taught me like the small thing which takes this a little bit further. That says like a good logo type should be able to work just in black and white. And these are all logo types I created, and they work in black and white. They don't need fancy effects like 3D, or they don't even need their color to just be a strong logo type as it is. One of the advantages of doing it like this is that you can use your logo both positive as negative. This is a pretty cool thing, which definitely in app design and that kind of stuff on different backgrounds is always pretty useful if you can do a positive and a negative. but also it's nice if you are able to put your logo in very different places. Let's say as a sponsor logo, very small somewhere, or maybe even if you want to have it embroidered on the shirt. It's nice that you have a really compact small logo type, which isn't too complex or too big or whatever. So I think that's an important one. How do I go about creating logos? Well, I've got a pretty easy trick. Yeah, I just look for a subtle visual reference. So I think of everything that I do kind of a brainstorm session on my own or with whoever is involved, and write down all things that you can easily visually recognize and have something to do with the brand. Let's take the logo of my DAO dashboard that I created. It's of course a subtle reference to, I hope you all see it, a dashboard. It's with the rectangular shapes. A dashboard is pretty a thankful thing to use in a logo, and then the small arrow as well completes the shape. So this doesn't tell all of the stuff like we're an app that builds a dashboard for all your DAOs and this and this. No, it's a subtle reference to my DAO dashboard, to a dashboard, and together with the name, it kind of completes the message. Another very simple example that I recently created is the new Avado logo. That their rebranding is currently in progress, and what's being referred to here is like, yeah, a kind of an electric feeling, like electric schemes, that kind of stuff. That's kind of the subtle reference that's being used here. Of course, also like with the dots, maybe a far out reference to all like the schematic decentralized network with all the little balls being connected. Well, it's a subtle reference to that, and also, of course, connectivity. That was one of the brand values as well. Since Avado, maybe I should give that little background information, is like a plug-and-play hardware device which you can just order, switch on, and it can be configured as any type of blockchain nodes and run different packages and all that kind of stuff. So it's really an electric device, and it connects you to the blockchain. So that's why it's important that this logo carry those brand values. All right, so that's it about logo design. Let's talk a little bit about colors and typography. I won't be spending that much words on it because I have a very simple idea about it. Just keep it basic. There's no need to try to get fancy with colors or fonts. Even with fonts, I would take it one step further. I would just say use one font. If you choose one font which has as top priority readability, especially in building digital products, I think you can come a long way. I think this is even the way to go. There's always, like most fonts, always have like different weights which you can use to vary, and of course you vary in size. It's really enough to use one font. There's no need to get fancy with crazy fonts and that kind of stuff. This will not like add value or add character to your app or your branding. It will just be hard to read, is my opinion. Like if we do the keep it basic principle to colors, I would say start with two main colors. You can reach a lot in branding with two very iconic main colors, which you use in a smart way. Of course, if you're building an interface, there's no shame in adding some interface specific colors, some less important ones. But in my opinion, two basic colors for your branding is enough, added with some interface specifics. If we do take the example of my dashboard again, this is how I set up the branding cheat sheet, or how you want to call it. So I just use Lato. That's all. There's no other font being used. It's a Google font, which also, of course, has the advantage of being well easy to use in a technical like environment, which I think is also very important to think in the context that we're designing. So the Lato, and then the two very subtle, the very outspoken basic branding colors, and then added with some interface specifics. that this very minimal approach doesn't mean that your interface have to be, boring or dull. This just uses all of the things I showed you above, and it still has a very vivid expression, in my opinion. It's in these little subtle details, like the V mark that's green, or maybe you can use that to give some positive feedback if you fill in an input, that the interface specific colors, as I want to call it, are being used, as well as the button here and the titles here. That's where you can add your brand a little bit specifically for your interface. Another example that I used before was, of course, the Avado styling. So if we take a look at these cheat sheets, the exact same thing happens here. I just used the Sen, which is also a Google font. It has 3 cases instead of 2, so we have a little more wiggle room. And it also uses like 2 very outspoken main branding colors, and some colors added to identify interfaces that are specific to Avado. Again, it's not in the subtle or in the minimal approach of the branding that you put the character of your interface. It's more how you put everything together, and what maybe even get fancy with a background or some visuals. Keep the fun stuff for where it's fun, and keep the branding minimalism to make it like ideally work in all types of situations. So that was, I guess, what I wanted to share with you guys. My name's Ben. I'm on Twitter. I'm on GitHub. If you're really old school, you want to send me an email, this is my email address. I'll also I'll put it in the link, because I'm going to stop screen sharing now and take a look at you guys again.
Hey, Fafi, thank you so much, man.
Hey, man, you're welcome.
I was always a big fan of your work, following Swarm City closely. I mean, I know all of the team, and I do hope we get to revive the Ashes at some point.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
It's really, you can be very proud. You showed the swoosh and the Swarm City, and I saw also the iterations of the logo. So just for the other guys, this was not the first logo. This was the last one. I don't know how many iterations you had, and also the colors, and there were bees, and very nice. I have 2 questions. One is, so welcome to Interspace. Basically, I built this kind of stuff with a few people. We use it to run conferences. It has a very specific requirement at the moment when it's used for conferences, because people have their own branding. And so 2 things are about coming, and these are my 2 questions. Like, one is, we need to have a logo there that we can place that would fit on all the subsequent interspaces. So basically my question is, can I ping you for this? And would you like to have a session with me or us?
Sure. Yeah, of course. I'd be happy to. I mean, ping me, and I'm not sure how much I can. I have to, of course, take a look at the schedule, but of course, ping me. Yeah, I didn't know you were behind this. I was already wondering. It's pretty cool what you guys are doing. So definitely ping me. Maybe it can be just like to guide you through it, or to think together. But yeah, sure. Let's talk about that.
No, it's a definite, because we had a Gitcoin grant, so we do have a few funds. So a good gig, but I would like to have it in professional hands, and nice. And the second question is going back to Web3, because you're one of the very rare designers that are that think about that space. So currently, I mean, very obvious question maybe. What's your favorite way at the moment for the user to get into the dApp, or to use a dApp, to have the Web3 Ethereum access?
Yeah, well, I think it's Well, that's kind of a tough question. I think at the current situation, I think it's not a bad thing to use like MetaMask and all the things that are at hand, because they do offer certain advantages towards like management with private keys and that kind of stuff. Of course, with Swarm City, and you know this as well, it was our dream to not be dependent on these kinds of plugins and to have it just all on our own in our own user interface. But I know this kind of like added an extra level of complexity and also like maybe an extra risk for the people using the app. So it's always like a trade-off between is it an extra thing for people to install a plugin towards like, are people safe enough to handle it all on their own, and are they enough like do they understand enough what the blockchain stuff is about and how to handle private keys to be trusted with it on their own. So at this point in time, especially the logo I showed you guys with of my DAO dashboard, this is an open source project. For that kind of thing, I would no doubt always take the plugins, because it offers so much ease of use in terms of development that it's a no-brainer. If you're really building a big app, or like if you are a Coinbase, for instance, then you might really think about it, handling it on your own, I guess. That would be my idea about it.
Thank you. So you see this role basically not also on really the implementations, but more on the connecting side still, where we saw like multiple iterations over time. At first there was run a node and paste in your private key. Then there was MetaMask coming along. Then now these days we have Wallet Connect, we have Fortmatic, parties, all these solutions. So do you think we should also be waiting on standards emerging from this?
Sorry, come again, because you dropped a little bit. Yeah, Fortmatic and all those kinds of plugins. And what was your question about those?
If we should not think about it too hard, but think, this ball is with the wallet providers, and maybe wait for them to form a standard?
Well, that's kind of the difficult thing. Like, if you do this, of course, you rely on an external party to do their stuff. And if they drop out or if they drop the ball, then maybe your app will like fall as well. I think as it is a trade-off between the work you have to put in and the security you can assure your users, or on the other hand, just using the plugins and try to skip that hurdle and indeed, as you said, let them take care of it, with maybe like the risk built in that maybe they drop the ball and then you're screwed as well, and then you do have to do it on your own. But I think it's a trade-off in resources and in development skills you have on board, I guess. It boils down to that.
Thank you.
Hey, welcome, man. See you soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know where to find me.
Likewise.
Nice.
I think there was another question from someone else I saw popping up.
Yeah, I didn't keep track of the Discord, but
do you have a question, Anonymous?
No, it's a friend of mine.
Oh, okay.
Do you have a question?
No question. Just supporting Ben with this presentation.
Great.
Thanks, man. Thanks a lot.
He's one of the most respected and beloved people in the Ethereum ecosystem.
Yes, and in the real world as well, also.
Yeah, I guess so. Always nice to hang with Effie or Ben, whatever we call him.
Yes, I agree. He's on point, like very precise. I might actually have a question regarding sometimes it's all as a designer, but also as a experienced designer. Can you wait? It's a bit of an unclear, muddy question in my head as well, because you always try to wait between the architecture and the final MVP that
Yeah.
has to be accomplished. So sometimes the MVP requires you get to an MVP with a bad design, and then someone comes in and reshapes the design by also like reshaping the MVP. So basically, then you have to go back to the architecture, that
Yeah.
simplify or just put offline certain stuff. So I don't know. It's not really a question. It's more like an open considerations about the hierarchy between like final user design and architectures. And if you have any case studies or examples that you can provide about this balance of the two.
Yeah. I think it's in my opinion, of course, as I said, it's like essential for mass adoption is the user interface, but it's also essential, I guess, um, for an MVP because if the MVP is used to communicate your product towards anyone, users or investors or anything, I think it can matter a lot, whatever the user experience is. Of course, in you should if in an ideal scenario you could work with someone who just sets out the big guidelines, maybe as I said, does an analysis and a summary of functionalities and makes maybe a very to the point sketch about how the interface should look without working through the designs and all that kind of stuff. Because indeed, like creating the MVP, it should be a little bit flexible still, and it should be like have a little wiggle room. But I think like working with the very basic user experience from the beginning is always a good idea, because as you said, like if you bring in the designer like in a later point, he's gonna have the urge to like move things around and then you have like a double work. So I guess like in an ideal scenario, let's say you start with a designer who knows it's just about an MVP and who doesn't start like creating every designs like to the fullest, but really has more like general sketches or wireframes even. And then with those wireframes, you can start building your MVP with your development team. And then afterwards, if you follow those wireframes or those sketches, it's easier for a user interface guy to jump in and make really the final visuals and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. That's
I think
true.
that would be my idea about it.
And wait, I had another sort of open question for you, which was mostly about the workflow to manage. So we already mentioned, we sort of anticipated it. It's as a workflow idea, it's good to like get the team together to create an MVP first, so that everyone in
Yeah.
the step is involved into this small scale representation of what you're
Yeah.
going to do, and then everyone can just take their own slot in the roadmap and you know according to what the small scale is.
Yeah.
Any recommendation to devs out there to just something that they have to keep in mind when organizing their workflow in terms of addressing designers and addressing UX UI?
Yeah, I think what you just said would kind of what you said kind of sums it up for me as well. If indeed one of the builders out there are wondering about that kind of stuff, I would get somebody involved from the beginning who really realizes that what you're trying to do, like because indeed like a lot of people will try to make it bigger and especially if you engage designers, they always want like the final designs and they want everything to look slick and perfect. But if you find some people who can like realize that it's only about an MVP, I guess it's that would be my way to go. Like if you have as a builder have like analyze the functions that are key to your app and have a clear overview over that, like a good designer should be able to create a minimal user experience or user flow with that. And I think as a builder you can go a long way with that, maybe even just that and just make it like that with visuals with resources you find on the web, like flat icon or all those kinds of free resource Google fonts. You can make a pretty clean interface already, or even using Bootstrap kind of scenarios. and then maybe if there is funds or there is time or whatever, then you can like have a designer make like very specific final graphics. But I think that would be the idea to engage someone who really has the idea of an MVP in mind, and can work towards that, and maybe with very minimal energy give you the guidelines how he or she would think this would be a good user experience.
Right. Okay. Last question, more of another indication from you is, ETHTurin is all about like trying to re-aim the scope of certain dApps, and the adoption claims that, I'm mostly a linguist, so I pay attention to the terms. I think that the terms used in a community define their priorities, and if you keep repeating mass adoption, people will forget about local communities, and that the real economic flow most of the time is local, with communities that work offline, also because the offline world can serve different payoffs that maybe you can adapt crypto in taking in, etc. So I know you because you were talking about kind of the scenes that you are involved into, but how important for you is like what's the difference in addressing like a local UX UI for local communities, and when it has to be global? Like what kind of free features that in your terms have like differs the matter?
Yeah. I think it's a good thing that you address like the term mass adoption, indeed, because I've used that term like 2 times, in as you mentioned, indeed, like the setup of ETHTurin is like focusing on the local stuff, and I guess I should have used adoption, because I think mass adoption is just a word that we all know, and it kind of implies that a whole lot of people will be using it, and it also implies that you will go viral and economic, and I don't know what you all attribute to that word, but I think it's just a matter of adoption. I think the same things that I said could be said just for adoption. Like it's a good UI and a good branding is essential for adoption. I think whether it's one person or it's 10 people in a local community or it's like 100 people, I think if your UI is not good and it's not smooth, it will scare people off. And whether that's on a local level or on a viral scale, I think it really doesn't matter that much. But it's good that you raise that point, because I will definitely change that in the presentation if I ever get to give it again. Because indeed, as you said, you're a words kind of guy, and I think you raise a valid point. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think that sometimes words program the way you receive designs in your head. So if you use certain words, then they resonate with designs, and you can if you change the words, then you can have the designs accept.
Yeah.
I would say that, if there's no other question, that's it. I thank you very much for your contribution. It was very thorough, and if you want to share it with, if you want to share it, sorry, it's meal time.
Nice.
I have my servants here.
That's nice, man. So good. Buon appetito.
Grazie. If you want to share the slides that you provided, I saw I managed to took some snapshot, but maybe it's interesting for someone to have them on Discord or wherever you want to share them.
Definitely. I'll throw them just in the general group on Discord. Is that the way to go?
Yeah, either on Interspace conference room or on ETHTurin introductions as well.
Yeah, cool. I'll do it.
Now I want to build a site like Domestica just for Web3 and accepting crypto payment, and you should be a tutor, having a course on how to do design for Web3. So keep that in the bag.
Yeah, man, that would be a nice idea. Yeah, I'll send Domestica an email. Maybe they consider if they have a lot of questions about that. That would be nice to have a question.
That would be awesome. But I'm also thinking like let's do our own. I'll call Spot.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah. Just basically offering courses,
So
but
it's
with
with
crypto
every
payment,
point.
right?
I mean, this is going on off a tangent, but I think if there were more questions on topic, I happily yield. But just to spin this off a little, it's another service where you're logged in. Like I don't think these they look like they would really select their people, so it's hard to get in. Usually, it's okay to get in, but if the service wants to kick you out, they kick you out. Well, like Patreon and such, because
Yeah.
usually the stuff would be on Patreon, and it really sucks. So I think these things, like it should be somebody should be able to just share their knowledge and make money from it easily if they accept crypto.
I'm all on board with that. You know, that's I know you noticed that's pretty in the line of Swarm City or whatever we were doing there. So yeah, I'm all for having that kind of more like decentral liberal place where people can share their knowledge and crypto payments can be done or whatever that kind of stuff. Yeah, man. If you ever start something like that, again.
So we're starting stuff all the time. Me, other people, and I really think that merely or as a first step, just ripping off something that is proven to work even I think if people have knowledge of computers, how to build stuff, even if I go to your country and I see some service implemented for your country, I can go to my country and have a complete valid business just porting that idea, maybe because maybe there's language difference. Like I live in Austria, to just port an English service to a German service. So this is always something that I love to share, that follow your ideas, people.
Yeah, nice, man. I think that's a nice quote to end upon, right? Perfect. Matteo, I think I will share, as you said, the links in the Discord probably. And I want to thank you, of course, again for organizing this all and also like for pulling through. Even it's Corona times. I think it's great what you guys are doing here. So hats off to you, and of course, again, the Berlin team. It's so cool to see the community come together. Yeah, pretty nice.
Yeah. I think we had also many talks yesterday how actually this collapse is opening so many restructuring possibilities to propose. The only thing is trying to reach to the policymakers, which most of the time are like on low CPU use. And anyway, this is another subject. Thank you.
Yeah, that's enough.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.